love to see what kind of food every airline likes to give you. So we started off with our breakfast on Air Canada and we got to Keflavik around 8:30 in Iceland time. So we started off the day by going to Costco to pick up some snacks since we were going to be on the road for the entire week. I loved seeing all the different snacks they had, and they had so many gummies. I would say an entire aisle was full of gummies. We picked up some mixed nuts, protein bars, fruit, bottled water, and jerky for the trip, and stopped by Sky Lagoon to relax after a long flight. We spent about 2 hours there and then took an hour and a half drive to our first hotel location called Blue Hotel, which was close to Golden Circle, which is where we wanted to be for the following day. In hindsight, I wish that we started with the Blue Lagoon on the first day because it's very close to the airport. Because we were walking around so much and it was cold, so the lagoons and the hot tubs were really helpful for our bodies to unwind. If you have the budget and the interest to go to more than one lagoon, I would have started at Blue Lagoon on the first day after arrival and ended the trip at Sky Lagoon since it's closer to Reykjavik. All the lagoons are really pricey, but it's honestly such a great experience because the water is so warm. It's about 103 degrees, and Sky Lagoon even had a bar built into the water, and you can just hang out and soak after a long flight. I noticed that a lot of the hotels also have hot tubs, and Blue Hotel had one, so we used it 2 nights in a row. The hotels here don't have air conditioning and just all have these big windows, which makes sense because it's really cold here. Since the drive to get to this area was pretty long, it was close to dinner time, and there was a restaurant called Micah right across the street, so you could just walk over. And this was definitely one of my favorite meals of the trip. Our second day was our Golden Circle day, so we started off with breakfast at the hotel, which was included. I really tried to get my fill of protein in since I knew we would be walking and hiking a lot. And we noticed that a lot of people were making little sandwiches to go, so we decided to do the same thing so that we could have a snack in the car. The little bacon cream cheese spread that I just showed you was so good. Definitely bring your liquid IV, and we bought a case of bottled water just because we'd be on the road. I love that all the caps would just flip open and close like this. It was such a smart design idea. If you're not going to be on the road, you really don't need to buy bottled water. Iceland's water is supposedly really clean and everyone drinks the tap water. But since we were going to be on the road so much, we got the bottled water and it was super helpful. Iceland's weather is pretty unpredictable. They tell you to dress in layers, but what I realized is that the thinner layers are better than the thicker ones. I invested in wool socks, some thermals for leggings as well as long sleeve shirts. I brought my hiking boots as well as a layer of waterproof pants and a waterproof jacket. We signed up for some excursions like a glacier hike, and they actually require a lot of that stuff, so it worked out to just have all the same layers and sort of wear the same clothes throughout the week. The weather really ranged from being super windy in some areas like this, and then slightly warmer in other areas, so having the layers to peel off easily was really helpful, and the waterproof layer is a must if you're getting close to any of the waterfalls. This is Gullfoss, and as you can see, it was so windy here, so I already thought the day was going to be like this, but later it was actually warmer and not as windy, so depending on where you are in the park and the weather, you have to be prepared for anything. We were driving a rental car, but seeing these 4x4 Jeeps with these massive tires were so fun because you need one of those cars if you want to go off-roading, but we decided we weren't going to. We decided to just pick and choose the things that we thought would be interesting to see. You can't really squeeze in everything into one day, so I'd say you should just pick and choose a few places that interest your group the most. A lot of these places are really close to each other though, so you're really driving 10 to 15 minutes in between these locations. I've never seen a geyser, so it was cool to see, but that was a pretty quick stop and it wasn't something I was super interested in. But then we got to Burfoss, and I hope I'm saying that right. This was the most beautiful waterfall I have ever seen. It was so majestic, it was so blue. The blue watercolor is due to glacial water, which I think is so cool. They recently did some construction around this area to make it easier to walk and see everything, so it wasn't really a hike at all. My second favorite spot in this area was this hidden crevice in Thingvellir Park. And again, the drive was so close to Burfoss and all of these other locations. You're really just popping in and out of the car once you're in the area for 10 to 20 minutes. Parking was super easy and everything was very clean, but you do have to pay for parking at a lot of these sites, especially once you get to Thingvellir Park. All of the parking fees in our Golden Circle day allowed us to pay with our credit card, and all of the fees were about 1,000 krona, which is equal to about $7.23 in USD. So definitely keep that in mind if you're just hopping around and wanting to check out some places, because if you're not planning on spending a lot of time there, you may have to pay $7 for parking just to enter that area. After hours of exploring and hiking, we decided to grab an early dinner before heading back to our hotel.
That's adorable.
This place had a really good beef salad and homemade gelato. They had a lot of milk cows on site as well as dogs. I noticed that a lot of the food that we had in Iceland felt very fresh and home cooked, but relatively simple in terms of recipes. They really like their lamb, and I noticed a lot of places have burgers, pizza, and langoustine, which is a type of prawn, so they have a lot of seafood as well. And we saw sheep and these marshmallow-shaped balls of hay all over the place. One of the biggest reasons I wanted to check out Iceland was to hopefully see the Northern Lights, so we downloaded an app and we were checking every night to see if we can get a glimpse of it. So we did get to see a very faint aurora borealis that night. It always looks greener in photos, but here is what it really looked like. For day 3, we checked out of our hotel and started our long drive through the southern coast of Iceland. There is way less to see on this drive, so you can take breaks wherever you'd like. There is a major waterfall that a lot of people like to check out. Seljalandsfoss was definitely the most crowded waterfall we checked out. The parking lot was full, and so many people were waiting to take pictures with the little hidden waterfall. Although it was a really striking and magnificent waterfall, it wasn't my favorite, especially after I saw Burfoss, and the color and the uniqueness of that one really stuck with me. I also noticed that starting from the Southern Coast Drive, every single landmark that we stopped at that had a parking lot required you to pay for parking, and they have cameras and check if you're paying. So if you have a rental and you're skipping parking payments, just know that you're going to get fined later on. After seeing Seljalandsfoss waterfall, it was mostly just driving through bucolic areas until we got to the city of Vik, which is where you should eat and also get some groceries because there is really nothing in this area. We stopped by for some lunch, and this was the most disappointing meal of them all. None of us liked our food, sadly, but it was a really cute place. Also, our service at every place that we ate at was so nice, so that was a huge plus. Next, we stopped by the grocery store to pick up some snacks and lunch for the next day because we were going to be on a 5-hour hike. The next hotel that we were going to actually didn't have a refrigerator in the room, but it was cold enough that we could leave our food in the car, and it was the same temperature as leaving it in the refrigerator. I was also missing my dog Safi, and I found out Safi means juice in Iceland, so every time I saw juice, I thought of her. The area that we were headed to, which is near Vatnajökull National Park, is very empty. It's mostly just scenic places and glacier hikes. So I really wish that we got more juice and even some other shelf-safe snacks like mixed nuts, because the hotel that we stayed at offered breakfast and dinner, and we had to eat there every time because it wasn't worth it for us to drive 30-45 minutes out to try to find a restaurant for all of those meals, especially since our excursions started early in the morning. And the hotel that we stayed at was, in my opinion, on the expensive end, so we did have to pay a lot of money to eat breakfast and dinner, which is fine. But if we had planned it out a little bit more, we might have been able to save some money. On our drive to the hotel, we actually had to pass Diamond Beach and Glacier Lagoon, and I wish that we didn't stop by here on the way because it was really windy and we were only able to stay for maybe 10 minutes, but we had to pay for the parking. We actually had to go back there to park there the next day for our glacier hike and our ice cave tour. So we would have had an opportunity to see it then, and we would have saved a little bit on parking. After 5 hours of driving through the southern coast, we finally made it to our hotel. This was one of the very few hotels in this area, and it was actually our only choice when we were planning our trip a month in advance. So we did spend more than we'd like to, but I thought that it was a really nice hotel. They had a restaurant built in on the upper floor for breakfast and for dinner, and they had 2 really large hot tubs in the back that faced a lake. And the room also had a lot of bells and whistles, like the coffee machine, as well as a towel warmer that honestly didn't work that well, but it was cool to have one. We spent the next 2 days at this hotel, used the hot tub every night, and had to dine here for dinner and breakfast since we were really limited in our options. The food was pretty good. They always gave us bread, and the menu stayed the same for both of the nights we were there. At this point, I was pretty tired of eating lamb, so I tried the pork. I even had like a summer salad on one of the nights because I was so tired of eating lamb. In the evening, we did make our little lamb soup, and I kept calling it ramen because it looks like instant ramen. And this hotel had this option to call us if the northern lights was visible. So right as we were making this, they gave us a call. My long exposure made the pictures look really green yet again, but it was barely visible and completely black if you saw it in real life. So we stayed downstairs hoping that it would get better while we enjoyed our little lamb soup. The lamb soup was actually pretty tasty and hit that salty spot that we were craving. But sadly, the northern lights did not get any brighter through the night. We spent every clear evening seeing if we can catch the Aurora Borealis, so come check out part 2 to see our glacier hike, our ice cave tour, and how we got to see the northern lights in the most unexpected place.